Welcome back to DC Breakdown. We are joined by our special law enforcement guests, Matthew Fogg and Leigh Maddox. And Leigh, you were in the middle of dropping some science. You were saying that it is not hatred that is the feeling that I need to latch on to. It is fear. It is fear from white officers of minority communities. Please explain.
Yes, so we're probably never going to know exactly what happened between that officer and the poor black man that was shot
In Ferguson.
Mm-hmm. But incidents like that go on all across the country. Right. And one thing that we know is that no matter what police community reaction you have, both people bring ghosts with them. Okay? So you have the black man who's been told generations of stories, like the one that Matt Fogg just told, about being wrongfully arrested, perhaps being, beat up, perhaps, all these stories are floating in this young black man's mind as he's being pulled over. On the same token, you've got the same stories in the police officer's mind. His friend was shot down. That's right. He knows about, hidden guns and hidden compartments and all this training that we've been taught. So there's this palpable fear. And when those two fears collide, if they're not managed properly, it explodes. And 9 times out of 10, it's not a good ending. So we've got to figure out how to drill down and address the fear that has infested both sides of this equation.
Good, that's good.
And maybe to add though a little bit to that is I think it's fear and it's also some racism involved pretty much, because the fear that I have, whether somebody's black or white, I should have that fear. If I have it, I'm gonna have it.
Absolutely.
But why am I afraid of more black people?
Right.
And that's the key, what we're trying to say. But I can't get into an officer's head. Now, what do
you think about what he just said about the fear of black?
Yeah, I say the fear of a black, it should be the fear, if I have fear, it should be somebody white or black.
Right.
I have that fear in me. But if I'm just fearing black people, then there's some other things going on. Why am I afraid of just black people?
Right.
And
Would you agree with that? Yeah.
Why am I squeezing the trigger off and faster or using the taser quicker or using the chokehold?
Right.
Doing things like, for example, we look at New York and we say, the New York Police Department already outruled the chokehold.
Yeah.
So why is this officer using it?
But here's a problem I have. Yes, they outlawed it 20 years ago, but so many officers still know how to use it in New York City.
Yeah.
To me, I have to have a conversation with you guys about the police chiefs or whomever is in charge of whatever organization you're part of, because everything starts at the top. And if I'm running a company, I'm going to want to hire people who in some way I can relate to them somehow. It doesn't matter, if I'm president of a company, it won't matter your race or your sex, but I do want to have women around me and black people, white people, Hispanic people, all kinds of folks, gay, straight, to, give me the whole world. But the police chiefs that we're dealing with, or the heads of these law enforcement offices, they are allowing these rat dirtbags to stay on, and they are bringing these police stations down. They are causing the problem. Everybody on the force isn't bad, but if the bad eggs aren't rooted out by the guy at the top, then the guy at the top is sanctioning this.
Well, one of the analysis that I always use, I say, some people say it's just a few bad apples. But this is what I say about those few bad apples. It's like somebody saying one of us in this room is a terrorist.
Right.
Okay, everybody else is fine. Do I feel any safer?
Right.
You know what I mean? If one of us is. It's the same on the police department. When you look at Abner Louima in New York, the fact that those officers brought that man inside the police station and sodomized him in that station said to me that was a culture that accepted that type of behavior, because they knew anybody could walk into that restroom at any moment and see that incident.
So how do we change that culture?
That's the issue right there.
But to me, the culture starts at the top with the police chief, whether it's Bratton or whomever else is on board.
But that's why you need, but you know what you need? That's why you need citizens review boards. You need more citizens involved. And they need teeth. I agree with you. Because the police is very difficult for us to police ourselves. We, just like in Ferguson, I believe maybe there is a reason why that happened, and we should know the reason why that happened. It should not end up where we don't know why that young man was gunned down like that. But will we find out because of all of the things that the police do to protect itself? I don't know. All I can tell you right now, just from being in law enforcement and hearing all of the different things that are coming up, they've already set the jury pool and already put enough information out there to make you question this man's behavior. So it's a lot of things that are being set up. Will we find out? I mean, I think we should and we ought to find out. We saw it in broad daylight.
Yeah.
It was on. I mean, it was right there. We got witnesses.
Yeah.
But will we find out? That's the key.
Because what is maddening is there's, Rodney King was on tape. My God.
Right.
Look at this man.
Right.
And still nothing, no conviction.
That's right.
And this happens over and over and over again when an African American suspect is involved and white officers are put on trial. To me, it's all a big show because a jury of the peers, I think as someone who has served on a jury, you're going to look at a law enforcement officer irrespective of that tape and you're going to give them the benefit of the doubt. And in some ways, I understand that.
Right.
But something as flagrant as you got a tape here. Now, the whole thing with the Ferguson tape, that has nothing to do with what happened,
with the young
subsequent
man
to him.
You mean when he went into the store?
Yes.
Of course not. It had nothing to do. But why did they put it out there? So that shouldn't have never happened. I mean, the Justice Department asked them, don't put it out there.
The police chief made the decision simultaneously to put out the tape and to say, oh, no, the officer was not responding to that. He just happened to be at another call and da-da-da.
And the police response was poor, but it was predictably poor.
Mm-hmm.
And we've been on this march since the 1970s when Nixon declared the war on drugs. And he began encouraging law enforcement to focus on that area. And then over time...
That area?
That area, the war on drugs, right? Mm-hmm. And then over time, what we saw with, President Reagan, he escalated it, he took it up a notch, and then next thing you know, we've got this war on terrorism, and we've got all this military equipment that's coming back to the States, and someone's got to take it. So now let's get these little police chiefs to take this big equipment, right? And they're not getting proper training. What are the standards? I don't know what the standards are. I know departments like LAPD have standards, but little tiny police departments, they may not so much. And so you put this big, powerful equipment, and then all of a sudden we're seeing flashbang raids and doors being knocked down, and that's where the schism between the community and the policing has really, been driven home.
And as U.S. Officials have said, U.S. Army, Navy, Air, whatever, they've all said, this is looking like we're over in Iraq. That's not what it's supposed to look like here. The militarization, that's not what it's supposed to look like here.
And then again, we're going back to race. We're saying this is only happening into the black areas.
Why does this happen in the white community when a white kid, because kids get in trouble, all kinds of kids. That's what we do. We get in trouble when we're kids. But when a white kid is arrested, it's not this whole big wham, bam, bang, your community's ruined.
Right. Well, and it's like I told you before, and I mentioned before, how my leaders were telling me when we were on the war on drugs, don't go into the more affluent areas, stay with the urban areas because you can get your numbers up there.
But how did they think that was going to go over with a black man?
They thought it was going to go over well. They thought that I would follow orders and do what I'm told to do.
Because that is what you're supposed to do.
That's exactly what you're supposed to do.
And it's worked out beautifully because now the police know they have hiring and retention problems, and half the population isn't even eligible to be hired because they've been arrested with these failed drug policies.
It goes back. Everything goes back to the failed drug stuff.
Right. And race again.
And race. Let's not. Okay. Let's not.
Because if it was an equal opportunity enforcement operation, we wouldn't be having a drug war.
Exactly.
So I always say that. I make that very clear.
Right.
If it was fair and equal, we could go into all of their areas and go after anybody that's using drugs.
That's right.
This thing would be over.
All right. When we come back, we're going to talk about the blue wall of silence that Matthew brought up in just a minute. Stay with us.